Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're good. I'm Jack Chew. This is Chewing It Over, 12:30 till 1 o'clock weekdays. We're a couple of minutes late because I had a little technical glitch, but it seems to be all working. It seems to be all stable. So thanks for joining me into this new year, second show of the year. And what a very important one it is, because it's Wellbeing Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month, with my friend and colleague Joe Turner, who's a physiotherapist and life coach who is perfectly placed to help us over these weird and wonderful times. Now, I'm not going to put pressure on her to say that she's going to solve all our ills in half an hour. I think that'd be a bit much, maybe give her 45 and she'd do something, but maybe 30 minutes we'll just instead hopefully move the needle in the right direction so that we can set the scene on what hopefully can be at least a tolerable year, because it's already been disrupted, hasn't it? So let's all have a little think and hopefully be there to support each other with ideas. We want to hear from you in the chat function as per usual, but especially about any sort of thoughts and reflections on what we're going to discuss, which is about trying to get established in this weird and wonderful time. So really do appreciate it, and do let us know as to what your thinking and thoughts are, and don't be shy. You know what it's like here. Don't be shy to be vulnerable on this stuff. It's a weird and wonderful thing, and we don't want anyone putting any masks up. There's no need for that here. It is a safe place. So hopefully, there's a click of a button. Joe's with me. Joe, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello.
Okay. Right, so you probably just heard my ramblings as you were there. Hopefully not making a mess in the lobby. What we're going to talk about today, and why is it important for today?
Sorry, Jack, say that again. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
What we're going to talk about today, and why is it important for us to talk about it right now?
Okay, we are going to talk about everything and anything about where you are at today, which could be anywhere on a massive spectrum from head down, can just about take the next breath and see the next hour ahead, to, oh, I've completely got my year planned, I can see the vision ahead, it's all sorted, and everything in between. But the first thing I think I want to ask of everybody is, where are you at today, and what do you need now? Or ask yourself that question. So you feel free to put that in the chat.
That's a really good point. Yeah, please do answer that question for us. Yeah, where's your head at? I mean, and also that's a bit dualist for me to say where's your head at, but it's just a bit of a classic way of phrasing it, isn't it? Like, where are you personally with all this? And also, sometimes we kid ourselves, don't we? Especially this time of year, to think about kidding ourselves to think we've got everything together, or sometimes even overindulge the other way and think, actually, I've got nothing together and I'm an absolute mess. I'm completely out at sea. And I suppose, is that the spectrum that you're talking about there?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people would probably say that they're in both those places in the space of 1 hour at the moment. And I would empathize with that. So if you'd seen me yesterday morning, brain mush, hadn't slept, right mess, got myself going, got into work, it was fine, could see ahead again. But I think at the moment, give yourself a break for flipping between all of those things at the same time. I was just saying to Jack before we came on, I was walking this morning and it occurred to me that we are as health professionals quite a paradox. So a lot of health professionals, but particularly physios, that's obviously my world, we're real doers, aren't we? We love it when there's a project, there's a plan, maybe even there's a challenge, and we can get stuck into, we can do stuff, and I love that too. I'm definitely that person. And then there's this other side of us that is often hugely empathic and picks up a lot. And at the moment, both those things are going to be absolutely top volume, and they require such different parts of you, and yet they're both really loud at the same time at the moment. So don't give yourself a hard time for feeling a bit pinball and pulled in one direction 5 minutes and one the next. But having said that, that's why I say, where are you at now and what do you need today? Because we have got to bring ourselves out of that craziness every now and then. My coachy word for it is grounding, and sorry if that triggers people, that is a very coachy word, but I just use it to mean, how do you get yourself back where you need to be now, to at least focus on the next hour, the next day, the next week. And once you've sorted that, then can we think about further into the future. But I think to start off, let's talk about some of the ways that you might ground yourself. It can be anything, and I'm very aware of the audience I'm talking to. I know you won't all be people that grab your green tea off the side of your bedside in the morning, go straight into a meditation and then a yoga session. Some of you will, fantastic. I do some of that sometimes, not every day. if you're into that, those are really good grounding exercises. But it can be other things like go outside for a walk first thing. Feel something physical. Feel the cold temperature. Go and touch the grass. Just do something that brings you back to something that is real and tangible and now. Or if you're an exerciser, go and run really hard. Really feel it. Get yourself a true set of sensations which are genuinely real and now, and you can hold on to, as opposed to all the things that are flying around in your head. Some of them very important, but quite hard to grab and keep for very long in your head. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I mean, and that's really interesting. So yeah, would you say I don't want to be guilty of just suddenly over-sciencing it in a way, but it's kind of is that to try and tap into some really just primal feelings and sort of instincts, and that you go and run hard, your heart's gonna race, you know.
Yes.
No matter what's going on in your head, if you're gonna feel the grass, it's gonna naturally trigger those sensations as to what that is and what that does, feeling the cold on your face. Is that kind of what we're doing there, is just to try and almost a bit of a shock tactic, for want of a better term?
But there's things like the cold definitely would be a shock tactic and could bring you out of that ruminating phase if that's what you're tending to go into. But yeah, absolutely, it is what you say, that genuine sensation that your brain can't argue isn't real. So any thought you have at the moment, any emotion that you have at the moment will feel very strong, but it's transient and it's not a real thing. So the things I'm suggesting here are to get yourself back in that, oh, okay, yeah, that genuinely is real. I can feel that, and I know it's true, and I don't have to ruminate on it and ponder on it. Just for that moment, here I am, back here in the now. A form of mindfulness.
Yes, well, we've spoken off air about a bit, but also touched on it on air last year, where people are often comparing themselves to, at worst, they're comparing themselves to others, especially the public persona of others. They're sometimes comparing themselves to a version of themselves that's sometimes a bit of a caricature and sometimes a bit of a rose tint anyway. But how much just want to clarify for people, because there's a lot of people struggling with imposter syndrome and feeling like they aren't necessarily, some of the emotions and challenges that they're facing are something that's quite unique, and they almost want to lash themselves and pull themselves up by their bootstraps and stuff. They're just kind of really wanting to think that I should be able to shake this off. How do you feel that is, whilst we know that that's common, is there anything there that's legit, or do you think that actually really most people are in a situation where if they're coming across as if they've got everything together in this moment in time, it's because that they're just managing to maintain the illusion? Or do you think that actually there are people out there that are just, you know, not necessarily the majority, but there's plenty of people out there that are all fine?
Well, I'm not going to second guess what everybody feels. And if everybody is out there feeling absolutely fine and sorted and calm, I take my hat off to you. You better come on here and do this, because I certainly don't fit into that category, even with all the tools that I've got to hand. Is it an illusion? Well, yes, quite probably a lot of the time it is. And I think we have all played into that, and at times it can be helpful. But you know, at the moment, particularly, it's interesting, isn't it? It's kind of the first time in history that so many of us in healthcare have been in such similar situations at work, and so there is a lot to draw on from shared experience and realise, you know, whether you are working in the NHS, your concern, your set of concerns might be a little bit different to those of us thinking about businesses, but you know, all of us will have concerns about income, about health, about the future of the place we work or our businesses. But there is also everybody's backstory, isn't there? So what's going on in your own family, with your parents, your children, your friends, people around you. And I think that's where it differs. And we're trying to carry all of that at one time, and yet stay focused on the thing which binds us, which is, you know, our world of healthcare and how we keep that going at the moment. So if you feel you are needing to create an illusion of calm and togetherness, then have a look at that. Have a look around you. Really read the things people are writing in detail. Look behind it a little bit. Look at people's body language. Hear what they're saying. You know, this isn't time to be a hero, and it isn't the time to be to feeling that you need to be something that you're not feeling, I think.
What do you say to those that recognize that need and are completely open to it? So they're not wanting to put a mask on that they're not realizing is there, right? They're quite consciously aware that they would be fronting up, but they know that there are certain people in their life, be that in work or in family, etc., that need them to be that superhero at certain times. It's that is a necessary costume for some of it. Do you think that whilst we don't want to overindulge that, are we understanding that that is a necessity for some people some of the time, and that we almost grant them the permission that that's not pathological all the time?
Yeah, I use might be hard to explain this quickly. I'll do my best. So within the coaching framework that I use, I often talk about archetypes, and talking about myself as a woman. At the moment, what you're talking about is needing to adopt what I would call a queen archetype. So let's say a queen or a king archetype. Now, those archetypes are not, if I talk about the queen, it's not a diva queen that needs to dominate and be powerful and be right. It's a queen that has vision over her realm. So my realm at the moment might be my business and my friends, people that I care about, not people really, really close to me, you know, the ones that, you know, their happiness is more important than my own. It's the wider people who I do have to keep within my care and in my thoughts, but I also need to maintain exactly what you're saying, which is an element of calm and togetherness. Now, that said, that doesn't mean I have to know all the answers and be right and tell everybody what to do. I think the queenly persona is, you know, you can see the posture it makes you adopt it. It's literally, okay, I'm here, this is hard, I don't have all the answers, and I'm very prepared to hear your ideas and to go and seek counsel from other people, but I am holding it together, don't worry, we've got this.
No, I see what you mean there. Yeah, it's you need to make sure that that's what I mean. I suppose when I thought about saying overindulge it is where you would then think that actually that front needs to be really definitive and dictatorial and really extend the illusion to being that everything's fine, rather than it being no, you can sort of front up and be seen to, okay, I'm not gonna collapse under this, but that still means that you can seek counsel from others and get the right people around you. So that's a really interesting thing. You mentioned just before I think we came on air, you'd mentioned about trying to find your feet in the quicksand. Can we just center on that a little bit and say because I think people could really understand that, and it certainly really spoke to me about how even though you're trying to, especially with even using some of your techniques that you've advised our listeners to do for the new year, people feeling actually fairly well equipped for the year as it comes, but then the ground has moved from under us in such an interesting way that can feel really disruptive. You've mentioned some of the grounding strategies, of course, we've talked about, but just unpack that a little bit as to the commonalities that we face there, where people thinking, I'll control what I can control, but then unfortunately the uncontrollable is so significant right now relative to normal times.
Yeah. So I would take this back to very basic needs. We've talked a little bit about needs on this show and on Massage Matters. I've spoken to Becky and Matt about this as well. At this time where things are changing all around you, I think you've got to go right back to, have I had enough sleep? What have I eaten? What are my energy levels? How open am I at the moment? And how flexible can I be? So think of an analogy of a tree. What's a very rigid, think of a beech tree that's very rigid and tall and straight. Think of that in a storm and how it will withstand all the weather that comes at it until it gets really, really strong. And then the big wind can just take the whole tree down and it will fall in one go. As opposed to, I don't know, a willow that will bend and flex in the storm and it will appear weaker, but it's going with the storm rather than fighting it. And I think at the moment we've got to be a little more willow-like. So the thing that gives us roots, sorry, I'm full of analogies today. The thing that gives us our roots is staying well and very basically well through eating well, sleeping, being kind to ourselves, being compassionate, not working ridiculous hours, not watching endless streams of news, keeping ourselves steady, but then being open, not feeling like we have to search for the right answers at the moment, jump on them, commit to them, go for them, and be really, really rigid. So it's a combination of keep yourself basically very well, and then keep yourself open to whatever's going to come tomorrow and the next day.
Because one of the things that kept me sane last year is that because of the disruptions that had occurred, it was meaning that I could sort of flex into my creative entrepreneurial side. And one of the things that I've heard from people on recently is that they recognise that there are certain things that they want to do that will indulge that side of them, but they're not really that way out. They prefer order to chaos, to speak to archetypes. They would want to, their routine is not by accident. You know, they've not ended up there. They've purposefully shaped it that way. And so that is the thing that makes them them. And so it's all well and good me saying, well, with disruption comes opportunity. And it's like, well, no, I'm all right for opportunity. Thank you very much. So that is just how individualized this sort of stuff is, isn't it? So when that happens, how much do we need to make sure that this is something that we're not just taking, like what we're doing now? We're not suggesting a recipe, are we? We're suggesting that you need to find your own, really, and it's quite important to individualize it.
Yeah, and that what you've just described is a need. So a need for order is very strong in some people, and it's recognizing that in yourself. But at the moment, I guess making sure it's not at a level where the lack of order around you is going to destroy you. So if you need order, write yourself down 3 or 4 things which you genuinely can control and keep steady, so that when the order that you love inevitably shifts a little bit around you, it doesn't completely rock you. And you know, if that means that you need to do the same things at the same time at a certain point in the day, do it. That does fall into that, you know, this is real, I can feel this is something I can control. If you're not someone that sees opportunity and loves the fact that, you know, that you can grab chaos and make something out of it, the first thing is recognizing that about yourself and accepting it. And accepting it in others as well, because, you know, we're all in teams at the moment. And my Christmas message to my team was basically, last year I would have loved it if you'd have thought every idea I had was brilliant and we'd gone with it and I was always right. But that isn't the case, quite rightly, because we've got a team of visionaries, warriors, detail people, big picture people, and you thank God they're all there, because we absolutely need everybody at the moment.
Would you say that now, I suppose there's baggage in my question here, I don't want to ask it that way because I'm realizing that is just me wanting to share an opinion and with a question mark on it, but I feel like the time is not now for people to develop resilience strategies in a really raw sense, whereby as if it's from scratch, whereby they can tap into some of the ways in which it's like, right, let's thicken my skin somehow right now, because it just feels like it's so chaotic. And I've seen people seeming to do that, to reach for these almost not mindfulness tools, but almost just like let's make myself impenetrable for a bit and everything will be okay and I'll weather the storm. And I just feel like that's actually, that just feels like not a right track. I kind of understand the instinct, the impulse, but I worry about some of those people that are just feeling like they want to suddenly put the guard up, thicken their skin, whatever analogy we want to use. As I said, I didn't want to frame that as a question because that's my opinion. Do you agree, or do you think I'm being a bit harsh there?
No, not necessarily. And I think there's a lot of talk about, let's pick up the mindfulness thing specifically there. I read an article the other day that was suggesting that actually being in the moment at any time, but particularly now, may actually be detrimental to some people's sense of well-being. And this brings me on to another point I wanted to discuss, that actually to just keep your head down and work moment to moment at the moment it's okay for now, but we do still need hope. And it would be interesting to ask the people listening, to ask yourself at the moment, how far into the future can you actually imagine? So pick some time scales. Say, can you imagine 3 months from now what you're going to be doing? And that might be quite tricky, because the next 3 months are definitely going to be ones where everything flexes and changes. Can you take yourself a year in advance? Can you do you have any kind of thought about where we might be in a year? And beyond that, are you someone that is guided by any greater vision, even longer than that, towards the end of your lifetime or even beyond your lifetime? Because at the moment, it's quite hard, I think, for a lot of people to imagine. I certainly find 3 months in a year I find quite tricky at the moment. I was quite clear about them, but I find they've gone quite blurry in this moment. But I still have much longer term visions. I mean, for me, they're around the future of healthcare and how that fits in the wider world. And that's still quite clear for me. And I can use that just as a sense check still, even now. So I don't want to stand still and ditch all the plans I had. But I find it more helpful to use that further visionary reference point at the moment, rather than things which I know in my heart are going to change because of factors beyond my control. I didn't really answer your question.
No, you did actually, because you were well, you might not have answered it directly, but I'm taking it as full-throated agreement. So I seemed like we both seem to be in agreement that essentially, if you were to just think about the here and now, and therefore let's just weather the storm, thicken my skin, etc., then you're going to potentially be at risk of then things are going to pass you by, and you're not creating anything that's then sustainable in that medium term. You've tapped into something there that I really share, which is that the here and now, wherever you're at, and allowing yourself those feelings, etc., but then also trying to almost indulge in the pitch for the longer term goals, because they seem like still things that you want to try to strive for, reaching your own, be that personal potential or whatever it might be, personal or professional goals, because it is that medium term that is such a hot mess right now, whereby it might be really difficult to conceive of where you'd be, because where you'd be would be relative to society, which is up in the air. Whereas there are two realities almost there, isn't there? There is the here and now. There is how am I feeling, what am I doing, are we safe, are we well, basic needs analysis type thing that you've talked about. I said basic, it's not basic, it's complex, but I mean it's very real, tangible. And then there's this longer term potential piece that we're talking about, whereby those are the more abstract goals that we always know are abstract because we're trying to strive towards them, and there are no, of course there's loads of unknowns there. Weirdly, those two things can be more tangible, and therefore don't overindulge that middle bit. Don't hold yourself. It wouldn't be healthy for us to hold ourselves up by the end of February I've done this or whatever it might be, because you just don't know the state of the world by then. So thinking a combination of those two things, very immediate term, and then actually allowing yourself those hopes, those visions in the longer term, because if you spend too much time in the middle, that could be one of the things that could be really disconcerting. And that really resonates with me right now. I agree.
And both those points, the here and now and that vision, they're both absolutely you. Because of what's happening in the world, that vision, whether you can articulate it clearly or not, don't worry at the moment. But that thing that draws you forward isn't going to change because of this pandemic. That was you. That there's something in you that draws you in that direction, and this pandemic doesn't change that. Doesn't change your fundamental makeup. So that and what's happening to you in this moment now are absolutely things that are you. Just seen a lovely comment come up from Helen Preston's "Feel the feelings." Yeah, that absolutely speaks to what I was saying about now. Feel the cold, feel the hurt, feel the physical feelings, and feel whatever's going on in your head at the moment. Absolutely, Helen.
Allow them to, that's it. Allow them to land. That's really important. Thank you, Helen. Dan's asked, she's saying she's missed some of this, and she's asking if she can catch up with it somehow. So a technical question. Yes, you can, of course. Wherever it is you're listening to this, then once it's done as a live, it can be accessed as a recording. It also then gets put out as a podcast later today as well, if you just search Chewing It Over in wherever you might reach podcasts. But wherever you found this for commenting, and you can also access this after the fact. Thanks to those of you that have commented. We've got the last few minutes then, Joe. I just wondered if we could just touch on the balance that sometimes people are expecting from it with regards to, say, a negativity versus positivity balance. We talked a little bit about this prior to coming on air, and I just thought we'd maybe finish with that, whereby part of what we're trying to encourage people to do is allow it, as Helen said, feel the feelings. That can include, if it's nothing but positive pep talking, and you're feeling like you need to hide away from any negative self-talk thoughts, then you're kidding yourself. But then similarly, it could go the other way. If you're just negging yourself out, dragging yourself down, and not allowing yourself those bits of hope you've talked about, that can't be good. One of the things that we want to try and maybe get through is that it's going to be a whole plethora of those things, maybe like you said, within the same 5 minutes. And that's okay too, because it's chaotic inherently. And so what are the top tips for people to allow themselves that, but also not get completely stuck in the analysis, and actually still making sure they then do move on with their time and actually do crack on with their life?
Yeah, my overriding top tip would be give each thing its moment. So this is going to sound much more structured and organized now, but if you're going to bed at night knowing there is something in your head that is really making you angry or scared or fearful or worried or whatever, give it a time the next day to fully go with it. And you know, it takes sadness. If you know you are feeling sad, allow yourself an hour in the bath with the saddest blimmin' song you can possibly find. Go with it fully, but give it its designated time and ring fence it. If you need to do a bit of planning, then give it its time. You know, give everything you need to do a very specific moment. Don't deny things, but don't stay in them longer than is healthy at the moment. Healthy thinking, just going back to your first point, is a combination of everything that's going on, good and bad, happy and sad, optimistic, pessimistic, putting it together and creating an overall impression. And all those things count. Just be very careful as a final point of labeling things as good and bad at the moment. So happy, good, sad, bad. That's rubbish. Everything has equal precedence at the moment. Not just the moment, all the time. Don't label things. Let them all in, but give them their designated rightful place, and don't stay either in the present or the distant or in the news for too long.
Absolutely. No, it's really, really interesting point. We've mentioned on this show before about the fact that we've got some exciting projects coming up, including the You Matter podcast, which we're cracking on with shortly. But you've also wanted to try and make a bit more of an immediate offering for our listeners to try and make sure we can all support each other and also tap into some of these coaching tactics and skills that you've been sharing with us today. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I am very happy to offer a weekly Zoom session for anybody that wants to access it. It's not an individual coaching session, but what I'll do is I will use this as a space for people to air what they need to air in a space where they feel comfortable, and then use tools and also interaction within the group to try and help people move. So, you know, if you are feeling stuck in something, this is an opportunity to come in, talk about it, hopefully get a bit of a mindset shift and a reframe, just set you off again for the next week. And I'm very happy to do that for, I don't know, the next 6 to 8 weeks, however long we really need it. I've put some options at the moment just on the physio and therapist support Facebook group. Put some time options on a poll, so if you're interested, go in there and just let me know when might work for you, but we can advertise it far and wide when we've decided the specific time, so come on that and you know, make the most of it. Let's support each other as much as we can at this time.
We'll create a bit of a round table and also recognizing that sometimes those problem shared being a problem halved, especially when then the solutions feel like commonalities and we're realizing how many of us are in this same storm and feeling in similar situations. So yeah, that would be brilliant. So please participate in order to make sure that you can then give your voice to what time would suit you best, but also then we'll try and make those sorts of resources as well as all the other things that we've got planned as available as readily as we can. So thank you so much for everyone tuning in. Really appreciate it. Make sure you're posting your comments on this video, or do let us know however which way you can as to whether or not you're interested in some of the things we've got coming up, as well as any questions or themes or topics you'd like us to visit when we do these on a monthly basis for Wellbeing Wednesday on Chewing It Over. I've got more shows, of course, this week and next with some great guests coming up, including we're going to unpack a little bit more about the policy with regards to vaccines, especially the sort of staggered approach to how they're going to be going out. The CSP have released their policy as to what they feel should be for health professionals, and I know that there's going to be other professional bodies that are doing so. So we're going to zoom in on that and try and look at what that's going to mean, because we've had a lot of questions coming in about vaccines, etc. So we're going to be making sure we unpack that a little bit more on this show. And any other suggestions you have, then do let us know, because we always want to be around and speak for you. And also, don't be shy to get in touch if you want to come on the show to speak about your favorite thing that you want to get the word out on. That's what this is for. It's a loud hailer for good. Loud hailer. Is that a word? Loud hailer? Yeah, that's right. For good ideas. Loud halo? Yeah. I've spoken for too long already. We're 3 minutes over time, and I'm losing my words. So thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it. Remind everyone.
Thanks for comments, everyone.
You LinkedIn and Twitter, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, LinkedIn and Twitter mainly. Yeah.
Sweet. Lovely. Right. Thanks a lot, everyone. I'll speak to you soon.